Hello, thank you for stopping by. I'm so glad you're here, and welcome to Church Cookbook Recipes. This is a love letter to the American home cooking I grew up with in rural Oklahoma. And I thought I would continue on and really start the series with one of the most basic church cookbook recipes that you can get, the scripture cake. The interesting thing about scripture cakes is that they don't give you any ingredients. They give you a quantity and then a Bible verse. To give you an example, you start with 2 cups of Jeremiah 6:20, then 1.5 cups of Judges 5:25. It goes through like that, and you come up with things, all of these ingredients that were in the Bible. This is a very simple recipe to make. It's mostly just in combining ingredients together and beating them. It seems like it might be pretty dense and heavy though. I'm a little bit worried that it's going to be quite a chunker of a cake. I cut this recipe in half because I didn't really need a full cake. So let's see the process. Sift dry ingredients together and set aside. I have 2¼ cup of all-purpose flour. I added in a teaspoon of baking soda. I'm gonna add in just a little bit of cinnamon. I'm gonna grate a little bit of fresh nutmeg into there, pinch of salt, and a cup of sugar. That's all of the dry ingredients, and rather than sifting, I'm just going to whisk them all together really well. Next steps. Blend the remaining ingredients, adding dry ingredients gradually. So remaining ingredients are gonna start with the butter. Sorry, this was 3/4 cup of softened butter. I'm going to add in 3 eggs, one at a time. Okay, oops. It's my first time working with this mixer that is open on top, and I just figured out the hard way that you gotta be careful you don't drop crap into it. That was a tablespoon of honey. So now the recipe calls for a cup of raisins and a cup of figs. I didn't have any figs, so I used a cup of raisins, and then I filled the rest out with some diced up dried apricots and some diced up prunes. Okay, I got a stool to sit on so I don't have to keep awkwardly squatting. I will figure out a good shot eventually to where you can see all of this, but I haven't figured it out yet. So I'm still working on this mixer too. Like I said, this is the very first time I've used it. I do have some cake beater attachments coming, but I had to order them separately, so they won't be here until tomorrow. So I'm trying to do this using Bosch's recommended method for making cakes if you don't have the cake beaters. Okay, since this is gonna get heavier, I'm switching to the dough hook. So I'm gonna start adding the rest of the stuff in. All my macerated fruit. The almonds, I'm gonna reserve some of these almonds to put on top of the cake for decoration. So it was basically 2 cups of macerated fruit, and it was a cup of almonds. I've also got a scraper attachment coming, a bowl scraper attachment for this that comes tomorrow, that you put down, like sort of you snap it over this and it extends to like the edge of the bowl, and one part goes down the shaft here in the middle and it scrapes it as you go. So that will be super helpful, but this is working fine. Whew. Okay, it splashed out at me. I'll put the splash guard on. I'm gonna start adding the dry in 1/2 cup at a time. All right, everything is in here. I'm just gonna give it a good scrape. This though, like I was worried about, it is cat. No, you can't get close to the food. Go. I don't want to squirt you. Go. I'll threaten you with squirts. Well, don't give me that sad cry. Get down. Go away from the food. I'm debating on whether I need to add the extra liquid. I think I'm going to. And the second I poured that in there, I just remembered 1/4 cup of milk that I didn't put in the batter. Oy vey. So let me see how it comes out with this liquid in there, and then I'll see if I still want to add the milk in. You know, it's still a very thick batter. So I'm gonna go ahead and just thin it down. I'm gonna put this into my loaf pan and bake it. And if I had a bundt pan, I would definitely use that. I went ahead and preheat the oven to 350. I figured that's a good starting place. I greased and oiled my loaf pan here. I greased and floured my loaf pan. I'm just gonna put the cake batter into the loaf pan and bake it for 20-30 minutes, check on it and see where to go from there. So this has been in a 350 degree oven for a full hour now, and visually it looks done. Yeah, toothpick comes out clean. I think it's good to go. It certainly looks tasty. All right, emergency update here. This has been out of the oven for about 5 minutes, and I checked it again and I realized the middle is raw. So it's gotta go. I finished washing this pan back and I just sprayed it with cooking spray real quick. So this is gonna go back into the oven. I put the oven down to 325 and I'm gonna leave it in at a low temperature longer. Thunk. All right, this thing is finally done. It was a full 2 hours in the oven. It's a nice looking loaf. It's much darker on the outside than it was originally. Hopefully that means it is cooked entirely. I'm going to go ahead and let this cool completely before I try to eat it. So it'll be tomorrow. This cake has cooled overnight. I'm hoping it is 100% done. Well, it definitely came out sort of squidgy in the middle. I did use a thermometer on it last night when I was cooking it, and it did get up to 210 degrees internally in multiple parts. So I'm not worried about getting sick from it, but it's looking more and more like a badly made fruit cake. This recipe is going to need some more working on. A bundt pan would have helped a lot to distribute the batter more evenly. But let me give it a try. It could still be tasty. It might just be sort of dense and gooey in the middle. Well, this definitely is a badly made fruit cake. I don't know if I'll be able to finish a piece of it. It's not good. I just wanted it to be more of a cake. And whatever needs to be done to this recipe to make that happen is dramatic. It needs to be completely overhauled. If you have stuck with me all the way through this video to watch me throw money down the drain making a scripture cake, I really appreciate it. So this morning I tried that scripture cake and it was a big fat fail, and it really bothers me. I should have known better. Like, I know that I could make this cake work, and I'm kind of embarrassed that it didn't, and I'm really annoyed by it. I had filmed the outro and everything. I was ready to edit this video and move on with my life, but this stupid cake, I want to make it work. So I got some more ingredients. I guess gonna throw good money after bad. Remaking this cake. I got figs this time. I've got the butter has already been warming up a little bit. I took my eggs out of the refrigerator and I wrapped them in a really wet, warm towel to warm them up to room temperature a little bit quicker. That's a neat little trick if you need to warm eggs up more quickly. Well, let's get started on this and hopefully I can redeem myself. Time to put on some armor because I'm getting down to business. No. It's food, you can't be around it. All right, I got all the ingredients measured out and ready to go. I got just a cheapo grocery store bundt cake pan. I am trying to stick with the same portions. Everything is the same ingredients the recipe gives. I'm gonna play with the instructions a little bit, starting by creaming the butter, but I'm going to cream the butter and sugar together and then add the eggs in one at a time. Also made sure the eggs were warmer this time. All right, it's smoothed out, so I'm going to start adding the sugar in and creaming the sugar and butter together. Give it another good scrape down. Now I'm just going to start adding the eggs in one at a time. Now I'm going to start adding the flour and the milk. So it's continuing to have a nice cake batter look to it. I did half the flour. I'm going to use all of the milk, and then I'm going to finish it off with more flour, although this is very little milk. All right, so far it is looking like an absolutely gorgeous cake batter. I'm really happy with the way it looks. I think I'm getting to the limit of what the whip attachments can handle. So I'm going to switch over to the bread attachment. With the bread attachment on, I'm going to start adding in the chunky stuff. So the figs, raisins, and almonds. This is a much lighter colored batter, I think, than I had yesterday. I think doing the creaming the butter and sugar and adding the eggs gradually and then alternating flour and liquid, I think was the right choice. I won't know until it's out of the oven. Into the cake pan it goes. I've got my oven preheated to 350 again. I mean, this really is just like, it feels like a thin cookie batter. Cookie dough batter, what do you call it? I guess it's cookie dough, although you don't need it. What's the difference between a dough and a batter? Is it just the thickness? All right, smooth it out a little bit. So the cake has plenty of room to rise. It's got, you know, the hole in the center so there could be some airflow. 350 degrees, I'm gonna try it for 30 minutes and go from there. All right, it has been 45 minutes now and it looks done. I'm gonna take it out and take its temperature. So at 45 minutes, it already looks more done than the previous version looked after like an hour and a half. So that's a good sign. All right, I got 207 when I first took it out of the oven. After a minute or two of poking it, the temperature has come up to 210. So as it sits and cools and the heat redistributes evenly through it, I think it will bake all the way through 100%. So I think I pulled it out right at the perfect time. That was 45 minutes at 350 degrees, which is so much better than the 2 hours it took to get up to 210 last night. And it looks much better. I'm hoping it is evenly cooked and not stodgy. I'm gonna let it cool down and then take it out of the pan and try a piece. All right, the cake has mostly cooled off now. I'd say it's like 75% cooled off. I'm gonna cheat a little bit and go ahead and work with it some now. I went ahead and made like a simple honey butter frosting icing. I'll put the directions for this in the description below. It's just powdered sugar, honey, butter, and some half and half. I'm just going to drizzle this over the cake and then serve it that way. Whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa, way, oh, way, hey, oh, whoa. A few almonds on top to garnish it, and I think it's ready. I'm just gonna let the icing set for a little bit, and I'll make a cup of tea. So far, just based on the looks, I am much happier with this cake than I was with the previous disaster. And considering how much better and how much quicker it baked, I'm hoping that it will have come out correctly. So now's the moment of truth. I've got a nice Darjeeling tea to pair it with. Let me cut a little slice and see. It is still a very dense cake. I can't see quite yet what the middle looks like. Oh, and it's crumbling apart. So it's not squidgy in the middle, which is a great sign. It is more of a crumbly cake. So judging by looks, it's more in the like coffee cake sort of area. It doesn't look so much like a poorly cooked fruit cake as the last one did. And I'm guessing that's because I switched up the technique I used for making it. Moment of truth. Yes, very good. This came out, oh my, it's really good. Yeah, it's definitely more of a sorry, I got an almond lodged in my throat. More of a coffee cake sort of taste to it. A breakfasty sort of deliciousness. It seems to like fall apart in large pieces, but they're all tender. They're not hard or like chunky. It's really good. I really like the fig in it. It's like if a coffee cake and a pound cake had a baby. That's what this is. So I'm really happy that I switched up the technique. So to recap, I creamed the butter and sugar together first. I brought all of my temperature, I'm all verklempt. Okay, I brought all of my ingredients up to room temperature. I creamed the butter and sugar together first. I added the eggs into that one at a time. Then I added half the flour, all of the milk, the last half of the flour. Then I mixed in the fruit. I put it in a bundt cake pan, baked it in the oven at 350 degrees for 45 minutes. Then I made a honey butter icing and put that on top and sprinkled additional almonds on top for decoration. A-okay. I did still use all of the original ingredients and the original quantities halved, so I didn't switch that up. All I did to change it was just change up the technique. I just sort of intuited the technique that would maybe make it less stodgy. The bundt cake did the heavy lifting with that, but there has to be some value to the technique as well. The bundt cake pan. I'm super happy with this.
Happy, joy.
I am so happy that I retackled this, because if I had ended this video with letting the stupid scripture cake defeat me, I would have been inconsolable. I would never have forgiven myself, and it would haunt me until the end of my days. And that's not even exaggeration. A little bit of exaggeration, but it was bothering me, and it's like wet and stormy today, so I was sort of stuck inside. And I wanted something to do, and I was bored, and I was just going over and over and over what the heck happened. My final verdict on scripture cake is that it's pretty tasty if you follow my modified recipe for it. Don't try to make it like a fruit cake. Try to make it more like a coffee cake sort of thing. If you've watched this video all the way to this point, I really appreciate you. Please give me a like if you have liked the video. And I hope you have if you've watched this long, unless you're hate watching it, which, I mean, give it a dislike then. I don't know if YouTube algorithm still uses the dislike as engagement, but engage in some way. Feel free to comment if you have made a scripture cake before, you want to make a scripture cake. That's more engagement. Bring it on. And if you have not already, please consider subscribing. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the future.